IVM.
Going for parties is just so frustrating these days. I mean, your mom will make it a point to come and tell you how her friend's son has secured a house for her, and your wife will also find out that her sister's husband is taking her on a foreign holiday. While you're wondering why you're the only one who doesn't have a plan for the damn future. That's why I never sleep well during the festive time. Unless... www.hdfclife.com. Select. Done. You know what? I think I'll sleep rather well after all. Live calm. With HDFC Life, click to protect life. The Income Plus option offers life cover and steady income stream, so you're always ready for any expenses that life throws at you. Basically, this plan lets you plan your expenses like you plan your vacations. It's that simple. Visit hdfclife.com to know more and for terms and conditions.
The male grooming industry has gone from being a category that seldom saw evolution and innovation to being one of the hottest sectors to watch out for. It's been driven in this direction by brands who have their origins in the D2C sector but have truly understood and evolved with the needs of the modern male consumer. One such brand is the Man Company. And today I have their co-founder and CEO Hitesh Dhingra on the show to discuss all of this and also to understand where this space is truly headed. I'm Varun, and this advertising is dead. Right back with Hitesh.
Hi, I'm Rohan Joshi, and on my podcast, the show about crypto, I've been having some pretty cool conversations with industry experts about what exactly cryptocurrency is and what makes it so exciting. If you haven't already, please check it out on the IVM Podcasts Network. Now, a quick shout out to my fellow crypto heads. We've got a listener survey going on, which will take not more than 10 minutes of your time to fill out. So please check the link in the description and help me out by filling it up. Don't forget to tune into a show about crypto on the IVM app and wherever you get your podcasts from.
Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We're talking to Hitesh. Hitesh, before we start, I've told you I'd make a public declaration because I've been a person who has tried to, I think I experimented across brands for beard oils over my years of trying to grow a beard. The only brand that I've stuck to for the longest has been yours because your beard oil is the only one that has worked exactly how I wanted it to work. So I'm putting on public record here. I think that's also a good way to kind of start this conversation.
No, great to hear that. And I think you've got a great beard. If you wouldn't have mentioned about Man Company, I would have anyways complimented you for your beard. So good to know that. I mean, one of the reasons is Man Company's beard oil. So yeah, good to hear that.
There's so many things I want to talk to you about today, both from your entrepreneurial journey, over a period of time, talk about the category itself and so many others. But I thought kind of start off by just talking about the landscape of the male grooming industry and get a perspective from you saying, where do you see it today versus when you started the company off? I mean, how has that evolved? What have you seen through that period?
Sure. Yeah. So I think when we were starting out, in fact, before starting out, I'll probably share the reason why we started out. I was running a dating app called Truly Madly, right, which is still, I think, one of the leading players in India. And one of the interesting insights that we got from Chai Pe Charcha, which is kind of focus group that we used to do with a lot of women, right, in MBA colleges, in corporates. So one of the big insights that we got was men probably initiate the conversation by saying hi, but after that, they don't know how to hold on to the conversation, right? After that, they disappear. Yeah. And I think the insight was that men need a lot of grooming, right? And not just in tier 2 and 3 cities, but even in metro cities like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore. Right, be it in terms of confidence, be it in terms of etiquette, be it in terms of, let's say if you're going on a first date, what to wear, where to go, what to order. Some of those basic things, right? Because unfortunately, these are not taught in school or colleges, right? Yeah. And so idea, when I decided to move on from Truly Madly operationally, was to launch something like Grooming Buddy, right? Which would be a content-based app and more of a community for like millennial men, right? So whatever issue you have, whatever you want to discuss, be it in terms of your career or relationship, you have this app to kind of ask your questions, and AI-based content platform. So that's where the idea started from. But then when we started working on the plan, we realized that it's not just the content, but also I think content could be great hook to get these millennial men. But then if you want to kind of build it into a business, we realized that there were not many brands talking to these millennial men in the language that they understand.
Yeah.
Right. So there were few brands, mostly female focused brands, who were offering like 2-3 products targeting men, right? And most of these products were like fairness creams or shaving or deodorant, right? But nothing beyond that. And when we spoke to a lot of men during our focus groups and primary research, we figured out that men had started spending a lot of money on themselves, right? In terms of how they look. So just to give an example, I think an average man goes to salon twice a month, right? Whereas a woman probably goes to a salon 45 days after every 45, 60 days. She might be spending a lot more, but then men have started spending on services like beard grooming, on facials, pedicure, manicure, etc., right? Apart from the usual haircuts. So they've been spending a lot more, even on their physical fitness. But when it came to personal care products, I mean, there was hardly anything available for them. So they were using the same like Dove and same Lux that was being used by women of the house, right? And that's something that we wanted to change. We said, if we are anyways reaching out to these women, that why not create a brand exclusively for millennial men, right? And offer head to toe product range.
I think that's a great insight, right? Because the problem was not that, and maybe I don't know when that shift really happened, and it'd be interesting to know when that shift happened, is that most men would end up having like 2-3 options. That I think that shelf was literally deodorants, like you mentioned, right? And some shaving products there. But as it went beyond that and it evolved, now it's become this wide array of options. So when you look at the consumer today, say millennial and maybe early Gen Z now, what do you see that they're really looking for from a male perspective? Because I feel that if you look at this brandscape, I think the category of men's grooming is still so nascent in just like how much it's under indexed. But if you look at the women's side of things, there's so many brands there, so and so many options. So what do you see the male consumer today really asking for?
Yeah. So I think if we look at the evolution, right, which was your question, look, so I think when we started out, we realized that, when we launched our beard oil, right, and it comes with a dropper. So a lot of consumers started calling us, asking us, ki kitne pani ke saath peena hai, right? And that was the time we realized, because I think consumers were assuming that this is more like a homeopathy medicine that you need to have it with water or whatever. So I think the insight that gave that kind of incidents gave us was that we just don't need to create category awareness, but we need to create a lot of product awareness as well, right? And that's when we started creating a lot of content around how to use, benefits of the ingredients that we are using, application, etc., right? And if you talk about today, I mean, last year we launched our vitamin C serum, and even though most of the brands are kind of advertising 8 or 10% vitamin C in their product, we are using 20% vitamin C, right? And it has hyaluronic acid. And the queries that we get is, why do you need 20% vitamin C and why not 20%?
Wow.
Right. So
that's like that's huge evolution going from like what you said.
Exactly. That's the evolution, right? And when the COVID happens, right, the first wave during the lockdown, we used some of our products and kind of created DIY pedicure and facial kits, right? Because the DIY queries on Google were like rising every day.
Yeah.
And we just created simple in-house, one of our video production guys, he created a video how to use these products, right? And both the videos ended up getting over 1 million views in a week's time, right? Both the products got sold out in 6 weeks of launch, right? So I think the realization was, even though I think it could be like 30-40 million men, especially for the price point that we offer. But then at least I think that evolution has kind of taken place, right? And today I think men are also well aware in terms of the ingredients, in terms of the usage, application of the range that we offer.
I think that's an amazing like consumer shift just from like understanding, right? And And what you just said about the videos brings me to an interesting point, because sometime back I was just asking a bunch of people my age, which is let's say 35, 40. I'm almost 40. And I was like, okay, how would you consume content or anything around, let's say, male grooming, etc.? I was just curious because I started getting targeted because I'm a person who goes around looking at all the products. And one interesting thing I got back is that people just want content that goes straight to the point, tells you how you can use it, what it's about. Don't give me like gyan beyond that. Don't try to get into the frilliness of it. It's also an interesting thing about the consumer is what I kind of felt. So when you're coming up with innovations around the brand, is that almost a lens that you have, saying, okay, this is how the male consumer is? They're obviously now deeply researching requirements, but we're not trying to give them too many frills. We're just getting straight to what it's about.
Yeah, no, I think absolutely right. So good thing is that we have a very strong D2C channel, right? So today we have almost 13, 14 lakh consumers who would have bought in last 5, 6 years from our own platform.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of these consumer insight surveys, right? Where we reach out to our consumers, asking them, one, obviously the feedback for the products that we are launching, but also a lot of questions around the requirement, around the pain point that we are not serving today. But I mean, they probably have this pain point and they are looking for a product for just to solve that. Or even in terms of what ingredients they are looking for, right? Or any changes that we can do in our existing grade. So we kind of work very, very closely with our consumer base in that sense. In fact, we have created a small focus group of brand evangelists. So these are consumers who buy like twice a month from the website, right? And so they now co-create all the products that we launch in the market. Right. So before launching any product, I mean, they get the samples, they share their feedback, we iterate the product multiple times.
Yeah.
In the time we get an NPS of 85 from these 150 consumers, we don't launch a specific product, right? So that has kind of become a benchmark. And so I think in that sense, yes, I mean, a lot of insights. Men like it simple. They don't like complicated stuff.
Yeah.
They are looking for ranges, right? So every 6 months, they would like to try something new. Be it in terms of face wash or in terms of fragrance that they are using. But then I think if they're stuck with a brand, I mean, they like to kind of, I mean, have a no-brainer decision in terms of what they want to buy next, right? So, so they like things simple.
And how has that led into, because when I look at the brand, and I think this is a problem primarily with, I would say a lot with male grooming, is that the tendency is to go very, okay, I am this like macho man who's going after women, which is the most generalized put it, but that happens so often in this category. You kind of place the brand in a very interesting ground of saying, we're not that, but we're almost at the level of balance. So I'd love to understand why that positioning was kind of taken and how that's kind of led to like any form of campaigns you've done and everything around the marketing aspect of it.
Sure. So I think 4 years back, I mean, obviously when we started out, vision was to create something premium, aspirational, something sophisticated, right?
Yeah.
And I think we as founders, I mean, especially I think I've worked with younger teams, right? I mean, be it at Truly Madly or even when I was doing Let's Buy, I mean, average age of the team was 25, 27. Right.
Yeah.
So when 4 years back, when we decided that we need to probably, let's say, get a celeb on board, right? We did. We got this agency on board and did a survey, right? Again, a focus group, and we asked them how do they perceive Man Company as a brand, right? One common keyword that came out was gentleman, right? Apart from, let's say, authenticity, premium, etc., the one keyword that kind of got highlighted was gentleman. And in our minds, just because we were black, brown, sophisticated, we thought that's why I think these guys are calling us gentlemen or associated with that. But then we decided to get deeper into it, why our consumers, or these were not really our consumers. I mean, some of them were, but some of them were consuming competitive products or like, I mean, not even consuming any male grooming brand.
Yeah.
So I think when we got deeper into it, we realized that it was not just because of our premium quality or look, right? It was the authenticity. So let's say if there were so many questions on the social media, aapka beard oil will help me in growing my beard or not, right? And we were the only brand which was not claiming that it is a beard growth oil. right?
I've never understood beard growth oil as a concept. So
No, but somehow I think our aluminium time, after getting like 70, 80,000 reviews on Flipkart, positive reviews, we also realized that, okay, it helps in growth. Because that was not the intent with which we launched our beard oils. So we were never over communicating as a brand or over promising as a brand. And when we ask these guys, what do you think is today's gentleman, right? Who do you define as a gentleman? None of them said that it is dependent on the looks, or it is dependent on whether you're wearing a suit and tie, right?
Yeah.
But what defines the modern gentleman is someone who has right values within, right? So it doesn't matter whether you can speak English or not, whether you are in a certain profession, whether you're rich or poor, or how much are you earning. It is, or whether you're shaved or beard, right? So it doesn't really matter. I think what matters is whether you have certain values within you, which is like authenticity, honesty, etc., right? And that gave us a very good insight. This is the modern gentleman that our brand is talking to, right? And that's what we need to stand for. And it is not just the six packs or a machoism, but it is probably, I think, a brand which should stand against the toxic masculinity, right? And start talking about it, because none of the brand had really spoken about or spoken against the toxic masculinity that we have prevalent in the country, right? So I think that gave us a very strong insight. And then we obviously got Ayushman on board, did one campaign with him, which was nothing but a brand manifesto, right? And that kind of went crazily viral. And after that, I think we've been doing, again, strengthening that positioning, that we are a brand for modern gentlemen.
And I think the most interesting part of what you said, I feel, is that, you went down to saying, okay, fine, how are you perceiving us, but also like, how do we want to be perceived? At some point, those two aligned. And that many times doesn't really happen with brands. Sometimes, what you're perceived as versus what you believe you can be, it takes a while to kind of get there. And it's interesting that happened with you guys. And as well, just the fact that even like the fact that you got something like an Ayushman on, and all communication which I've seen has kind of stuck to that part. And as that's gone ahead, how has that evolved in terms of the campaigns you do? Do you now look at it saying this is the kind of man we're going after, or have you kind of seen that even this category is kind of evolving into multiple parts? I mean, if you look at this consumer, who is this? I'm going to call it the gentleman consumer, since you've named it that. If you had to break them down, how would you kind of break down that consumer?
Yes, so I think unlike traditional FMCG companies, whenever they used to segment their consumer, they used to look at like SEC A, B, certain age group, certain salary, right? But I think what digital, especially for brands like us, which are digitally native, I think what digital has done is kind of broken all those boundaries, right? So now, when you're launching a campaign or when you're launching a product, you're not just reaching out to people in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, right? A 25-year-old guy in Ajmer probably has higher aspirations than a 25-year-old guy sitting in Gurgaon, right? Because he's consuming the same content, but he never had access to like certain brands, which are high quality, slightly more premium, etc. Right? So I think in that sense, we define our consumer as 18 to 35 age group, right? Which is a very wide age group when we look at FMCG. But yes, these are like millennial plus bit of Gen Z men, right? So that's what we focus on. We don't really believe in segmenting it further into what they are doing, how much they are earning. If someone who's earning 30,000 rupees, for him, priority is like personal care, he may buy our face wash, right? Or someone earning like 5 lakh a month, he can also use our face wash. So we are not creating different segments in that sense. And I think that's something which has been made possible only in last few years, right? And thanks to social media, thanks to content creation, that you can kind of break all those boundaries when it comes to segmentation.
And now going to almost like a flip side, obviously, one thing which you mentioned earlier is that, obviously your own D2C site is where, there's a continued amount of purchase happening. But how do you look at the balance between like going D2C, but also being able to do, modern trade, being in stores, being in shelves? If you look at that today, how do you see that balance happening? Obviously, COVID kind of pushed it towards D2C and online a lot. But when you look at the balance today, how do you see that happening?
Yeah. Look, so for us, we were very clear from day one that we are creating an experiential brand, right? And because that's what the insight we had. We wanted to. I mean, there were so many brands for women, right? I mean, if you go to any mall or let's say Shoppers Stop, I mean, you'll find so many color cosmetics, skincare brand, and women are trying it out, right? And there was nothing for men, and we wanted to be that first brand, experiential grooming brand in India, right? So that now, if you go to mall or a Shoppers Stop, I mean, you have Man Company, and you can try out different products as well. So that was very, very much there right from the start in terms of our vision or strategy. But obviously, I think we wanted to build the brand online, see the traction, get the right product market fit, because modern trade is expensive, right? I mean, you have inventory exposure, manpower exposure, etc. But 2.5, 3 years back, 2019 is when we kind of got launched in Shop Stop. So we started with Shop Stop, then got into Central and Lifestyle. And these three kind of became a very strong pillar when it came to modern trade for us. And we were the first and only men's grooming brand there. So, and started seeing great traction. So we started with 7 Shop Stop outlets in and around Mumbai. And within 3 months, they decided to open all the 80 doors for us, right? And they gave us a good visibility, right? I mean, multiple presence, good visibility. So that kind of, I think, really helped us as a brand. Today, I mean, offline contributes almost 40% of our business, right? So it has obviously last 2 years were difficult, specifically for the offline channel that we were into. But in last 6 months, we expanded into hypermarkets like Spar and Spencer as well. Right. And some organized pharmacies like Wellness Forever, Guardian. And I think that channel has been scaling up really well. So brand and product, I think, has been very, very well received. Today, it contributes 40%, but we expect that if things remain fine, then I think next year, 50% of our overall business could come from offline.
And in this expansion play is kind of when I'm guessing the Emami conversation happened and partnership kind of built out. How did that kind of come to play, and what was the thought process? Was it more, okay, this is a way to kind of stabilize and expand? And just I'd love to hear. I always find it interesting when these pieces come together, because you're kind of putting together what is obviously large scale companies that are built over time, but you have newer companies that have really been able to catch the consumer today, becoming a part. So just love to hear a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. Look, so I think Emami, invested in us for the first time in 2017. So that time we were only available on our own website, right? So we hadn't even explored Flipkart and Amazon that much, right? So offline was very far off. I think that was not part of the strategy, but yes, I think one of the reason to kind of partner with them to use their offline channel, right? But then obviously I think we realized that Emami as a player, as an incumbent FMCG player, focuses a lot more on mass market, right? So their focus would be general trade, and even within general trade, it will be more like B and C level stores, right? Or rural market. And we believe that as a brand right now is not the right time to kind of leverage on that channel, right? So that may happen like 2-3 years down the line, but right now I think there's enough juice in online and the modern trade that we are doing. So yes, I think to answer your question, for Shopper Stop Lifestyle, yes, we couldn't use their expertise, but for GT, yes, we'll be using their expertise, and more so for international expansion, because I think Emami today, I think almost 15% of their revenue come from their international business, right? And globally, I mean, if you look at countries like UAE or Russia, there, I mean, GT is very strong, right? It is mainly modern trade, and that's where our brand kind of fits in really well. So I think that will start playing out from this year, most probably.
I have a bunch more questions to ask you, especially on your journey, because you meet a repeat founder of companies who's been able to kind of build businesses. I always want to kind of dig into that part, but I know we need to go for a break. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with advertising instead. We know you love fast food,
fast fashion,
faster payment,
lightning fast internet speed.
Then why not fast information?
On Think Fast, where we discuss the latest developments in the world of technology, business, marketing, pop culture.
With a side of sarcasm and my dad jokes. or just mine?
Not mine, Varun. My jokes are funny. So join me, guys, the funnier one, Suchita Salvan, co-founder of LBB.
And me, Varun Dugirala, the co-founder of The Glitch, as we think fast only on the IVM network.
Fresh episodes out every Monday.
On the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcast from. Welcome back to Advertising is Dead. We still talk to Hitesh. We've run through, I feel, to fair amount of depth on the male grooming aspect. But I think what's interesting about you is that you've also built multiple businesses. You had an interesting professional journey in that sense. I want to start off with your first venture, but also want to ask you that what led you to being an entrepreneur in the first place? Go like way back to Let's Buy. How did that kind of happen? What was the journey leading to that point?
Sure. Look, so I think when I did my MBA, I got placed in this company called Hiteshs Technology. So it was based out of Singapore. So 4-year-old company doing more than $1 billion revenue. So I joined this company as a management trainee, and I was very excited to join this company because it was started by my alma mater. And it was more in supply chain and distribution. And I think, during MBA, I did a couple of projects around supply chain and found it to be kind of exciting enough. But when I joined this company in Singapore, I realized that they were so it was headquartered in Singapore, but had operations in 35 countries. But headquarter had just 60, 70 people, right? And there was no clear defined role for me, right? So I was one of the first initial set of management trainees who had joined there. So I was working with the founders, but I was doing almost everything. So I used to reach office at 9 o'clock in the morning and leave at 1 o'clock in the night, right? And I was interacting with all those 60 people day in, day out. And I think that, in hindsight, gave me so much learning, so much exposure to different verticals within an organization, right? How finance works, how HR works, marketing, branding works, management, how management thinks of all these things, and team building, etc. So even though I think that time it was a short stint and I had to kind of move back to India, but then I think that kind of kept that excitement going for the startups. And when I moved back to India, I ended up joining again another startup in advertising space, online advertising. So back then, online advertising was just taking off. Google hadn't set up their office in India. So this was in 2005. And a couple of my friends were starting out Quasar Media. So I joined there as a kind of third or fourth founding member and created an online advertising network for them, right, which was called Tyru, which still exists. And again there, because I had to learn so much. I didn't know anything about Google, how Google makes money or how online advertising works, but worked so much with affiliates like Booking, etc. And obviously we were building the team out, we were building the businesses out. So again, I think I was more of an entrepreneur, building a vertical within a company. But both these stints kind of gave me enough exposure in how to kind of create a company, create a business, right? And when I was working with Quasar, I realized that I was managing few accounts like Make My Trip, India Time Shopping, eBay. And I think I realized that eBay back then was selling one mobile phone every 3 minutes. Today, Flipkart sells like few hundred, few thousand every second, but and one laptop every 12 minutes, right? So I think that kind of gave me a good insight in terms of that, yes, I think people have started buying these products online. But when I was working with Hiteshs, I realized that Apple in US was doing $1 billion. But in India, brands like HP, so Hiteshs was into distribution, HP, Microsoft, etc. In India, none of these brands were focused on e-commerce because there was not even a credible platform to sell authentic electronics.
So
I think that gave me insight. I started Let's Buy. I wanted to be first player selling 3Cs, consumer electronics, communication, computer peripherals, etc. So partnered with a lot of brands, launched that. So ran that for 2.5 years. And then Flipkart ended up acquiring us. And after that, took a 6-odd months sabbatical. Then met
That's always a good thing to do. And this is a question I ask also because I'm personally from a company that got acquired as well. And I always talk to founders saying, it's always, I believe that a founder's mindset is always, okay, you'll say you'll take a year off, you never last the year. So for you, it was 6 months. Then I'd put it that way.
Oh yeah, and it was the most difficult 6 months of my life because I think when we were building Let's Buy, it was a roller coaster ride. I mean, we were kind of, there were so many days where me and my co-founder Amanpreet, who heads Airbnb now, we used to sleep in office because next day again, our office was in Ladassarai. Both of us were staying in West Delhi. So it was a roller coaster ride. So taking a 6-month long break, I think first couple of months I really loved, but then after that it kind of, it was more of a networking time pass, just meeting people, understanding what could be the next thing. Yeah.
And then how did Truly Madly happen? How did that?
Yeah, so I think during the 6 months, I ended up meeting Sachin Bhatia. So Sachin was co-founder of Make My Trip, and he had just exited Make My Trip, and he was my client when I was working with Quasar.
Okay.
So Sachin was looking for his next stint, and I was in a similar situation. So we both kind of started evaluating different verticals. So he had few ideas, I had few ideas, and we realized that matchmaking was one space which wasn't disrupted, right? I mean, there were Shadi, Jeevan Sathi, Bharat Matrimony, but they were all like Web 1.0 companies. Yeah. And whereas the market was moving more towards mobile first, personal, right? So we figured out that there were a lot of, I think, pain points when it came to women, right? I mean, they were not comfortable in uploading their profiles or managing it. So wanted to create a women first dating plus relationship app for India. Yeah. Right. And that was the idea. So started with Truly Madly, I think in 2000. So we started working on it in 2012 and ended up launching the company in 2013. So got Rahul, who was again working with the Make My Trip as a co-founder. So three of us got together and kind of started it.
And you spoke about how the Man Company came to be, but when I look at all these three stories, I see a common thread that is almost like you're seeing you're in a space, you're seeing an opportunity, either opportunities from a person who you've interacted with in the past, or from a category that you're looking at, or something that you're working in. And that's what I've gotten from this one small part that you kind of said. If you had to look back at your entire journey as an entrepreneur, what are the things that you kind of learned, which of this period, which you think that anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur already is right now, or anybody in this professional space can kind of tap into?
Yeah. No, I think absolutely right observation. So yes, if I connect the dots, I think all these three were more like blue ocean opportunities, right? And so I got attracted towards that. So I think when it comes to starting up, there are two kind of opportunities that an entrepreneur should look at, right? So one is blue ocean, where there's no TAM today, but you believe that, yes, I think disruption will happen, right? And you get into it. It can be a hit overnight, like what happened with the Let's Buy. I think e-commerce kind of just got a boost, right? And Flipkart and I think everything happened during that time. Or it could be like Truly Madly, right? Where I think Tinder kind of entered the market and disrupted it completely, right? So even though I think Truly Madly is today running profitably, but still, the scale, we couldn't really get the scale that we were aspiring to get, right? So when you go after blue ocean, it could happen either ways. Second kind of opportunities where the TAM is pretty big, right? So let's say if I look at the skincare market, women's skincare is already a huge market, right? And there, if you have to get into, you just need to crack the product plus brand market fit, right? You don't really need to prove or create the market, right? So it probably requires a bit less effort. But yes, I think that also is an opportunity. So for me, I think the biggest learning is that for whenever, let's say, I need to do my next venture, I'll probably go the second way, right? Because the TAM already exists, and you need to put in probably less effort and kind of scale up faster. So I think that's one learning. Second learning, I think that we had from Let's Buy is that VC money should never be oxygen to your business, right? Because generally what happens is if you're in a high scale, high burn business, right? And tomorrow if the VC taps kind of dry up, then you're dead, right? You don't have a U-turn. So that's something that I learned, and probably I think that something that reduced my risk appetite as well. And that's why I did Truly Madly, which was a cash flow positive business, or Man Company, which is a very low burn, high gross margin business. But yes, I think that's the personal learning I had from all my stints.
What I also like to ask you is that when you're hiring people, I was going through some of the, and this is one I think podcast you were on, which is pinned on your LinkedIn, which I was running through. And I think there's something which you said, which I thought was very interesting. You said that you prefer attitude over pedigree. It's something that popped up at me. And I always like to ask founders and people who run businesses, saying, what do you look for when you hire people? Because I think in modern teams, you require people with a certain mindset. So I mean, from across the board, what do you look for? But especially this line, because it stood out to me. Was it in terms of team? But where does that thought process kind of start with?
Yeah. Look, I think what I meant was that, yes, I don't believe in, and obviously for specific roles, you need to hire pedigree as well. But I think when you're building your core team, right? And by core team, not just the founders, but also the founding members, especially the first 20, 25 hires, right? I think what matters the most is the right attitude, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're from IITs or IIMs, right? But what matters is whether you can give your 100 or 120% to the startup or not. Because I think that's what makes or kind of kills the startup, right? So you don't really want, and generally I've seen, I mean, that's my personal experience, that I've seen that if you have a higher opportunity cost, which comes from higher pedigree, then during the tough times, it gets difficult for you, right? Because you know that your opportunity cost somewhere else is high, right? So you end up giving way too fast, right? So unless you are the founder, right? So I think that's my personal observation, and till now, I think that's what I believe in. But yes, I think after a certain scale, you need certain people to scale things from, let's say, Y to Z, right? I mean, from X to Y, yes, it is only attitude, but from Y to Z, you need people with right pedigree as well, who have been there, done that, and now can scale the business to next level.
And what do you look for when you look for someone from your team? Because a large part of the audience of this podcast, are at a certain stage in their career, either starting off at that middle rung when they're saying, okay, I need to figure out where things are really going, but rather what skill sets I need. So if I'm someone who wants to work in the space in which you operate or have operate across, what should someone really focus on? What should they upskill themselves on? What should they kind of learn?
Look, I think the world of tech is kind of moving so fast, right? So you need to be kind of very, very updated, right? So today, honestly, I mean, I'm still figuring out Web3, right? I mean, and it feels like that, yes, I think we've kind of turned...
I haven't even tried half the time, but I have lately also started to say, okay, I'm like in nursery, I'm not even kindergarten is what I like to say.
Yeah. And I think a few days back, I met this 21-year-old guy, I mean, who has built kind of NFT marketplace, right? And I was so inspired, from him. And one thing, and I think that's the saying in our group. I mean, we are all like 40, 45 age group, that all of us need to have a 16, 18-year-old mentor in our lives, right? So I think one skill set that I think expect from, let's say, a 25-year-old guy is to be very, very updated and passionate about, let's say, either technology or branding, right? And be focused in terms of what you want to achieve, because I think, and be passionate about something that you want to achieve, right? So let's say if you want to build your career in brand, learn whatever possible, right? See whatever case studies you can find, how the brands are being built, not just in India, but globally. And then, I mean, use your kind of learning, whatever theoretical learning you have in joining a startup, and kind of learn at their expense, right? But it's very important to know where you want to go, rather than just trying 10 things and then figuring it out.
Going back to the category, right? What are you seeing as trends for the future? If you look at the male grooming industry, and you're saying, okay, obviously there are multiple categories that are coming. It's gone from like we started off saying at the beginning of the episode, like a few simple categories, now like a wide array. What are you really doubling down for the future and saying, okay, these are categories we really see as growth areas? What are almost product lines which weren't even considered like a year ago, which you're now saying this is definitely one of the biggest ones coming up? So what are you seeing in that space?
Yeah, I think there is a very strong convergence happening between, I would say, beauty and health, right? Or beauty and wellness. I think everyone realizes that it is not just the application, right? So it is also about the consumption, right? What you're consuming and your overall lifestyle, right? What you're doing during the day that helps in identifying how your skin is going to be, let's say, when you turn 50, or how your hair are going to be. So I believe that conversion between beauty and wellness is going to be the next growth phase. And I think as a brand, we've already kind of plunged into that space, right? So at least recently we got into ingestible space where we've launched these a very interesting new format of nutraceuticals, right? So these are like dissolvable strips in different flavors. So you just put it on your tongue and it gets dissolved. Because we realized that I think millennial men, or Indians as such, they don't like to pop tablets unless doctor prescribes for them, right? And within a week, 10 days of launch, we've already seen that our Look Better, right, which is nothing but biotin in a strip, has started doing exceptionally well, right? So what that means is that, yes, I think people realize that it is not just the biotin shampoo that you need to apply, but you also need to consume biotin in your diet, right? And that's something that we believe will probably drive the, I think, next scale or next growth lever for the brand.
It's interesting you say that, because that's a category which I've started to like consume a lot of, like everything from gummies to I think the dissolvable strips. Like I said, I'm a perennial like sampler of all these categories. So I'm definitely going to check that one out as well. I also want to kind of ask you one piece which I think we didn't touch upon enough. Is the fact that when you've built out the entire brand, have you also seen the fact that obviously we spoke about how much D2C played into it, but just a mixture of performance and influencer? How have you kind of looked at the influencer marketing space, considering how much creators are now almost media pipelines for all brands? How have you seen that aspect kind of play into your mix, and how you kind of connected with your consumer?
Sure. Look, so I think when we started out in 2015, Instagram was just getting launched in India. Right? So,
it's unbelievable that you think about that 2015 was when it came out, considering it's such a large part of our lives.
Exactly. So very hard to believe. But so that time, I think influencer marketing was just not there, right? I think influencer marketing started somewhere in 2017, 18, right? And I think the biggest challenge when we were even reaching out to, let's say, VCs for fundraise, etc., the biggest question that we used to, will the virality happen for this category? Because one, men just don't use these products, and women may talk about the color of lipstick that they're using, but men will never talk about the brand of hair, shampoo that they're using, right? So how will that happen? And I think to our surprise, in 2016-17, right, when Instagram was just gaining traction, we see a lot of our consumers, they started putting up their pictures with a product, right? Be it a beard oil or a shampoo or a body wash, and only because of our packaging, right? Obviously, the high quality products as well, but just because packaging was so premium and aspirational. And back then, you used to get the products in a wooden box with haystack, etc. So the overall, I think the experience of even getting a TMC hamper was like awesome, right? And I think that created a lot of word of mouth. And we believe that I think the initial set of influencers for the brand were our consumers, right, who were buying the product. And so they became brand evangelists. So I think first 7,000 mentions on the Instagram were all organic from the consumers, right? Wow. And after that, yes, I think we started, and especially during occasions like Valentine's, Raksha Bandhan, so big gifting seasons, we started partnering with the celebs, be it the actresses like Jacqueline and Pariniti Chopra, and also a lot of influencers, women influencers, right? Because we wanted to kind of reach out to women, and that was not the core audience that we had built. So the journey started there, and we believe that I think wherever we are today is obviously thanks to the influencer plus content marketing that we've done over the last few years. I think performance marketing, we realized early on, and I think considering my previous experience with Truly Madly as well, we realized that again, performance marketing is more like a tap, right? So the day you shut the tap and your business is like back to nil. So from day one, we were investing heavily on brand marketing. right? And I think that's one thing I kind of recommend to any new startup who's getting into D2C space as well, that you can't ignore brand marketing thinking कि यार मेरे को direct sales का नहीं पता चलेगा, right? क्योंकि brand marketing का you won't see the immediate impact, right?
Yeah.
But I think you'll see the impact in long term, and that is the only moat that you can have as a D2C brand. Right, product can be replicated, performance marketing can be replicated. Someone will spend 2x of your amount on Facebook and will acquire 2x customers. So you don't have any control over that. So yes, I think for us as a brand, performance marketing is more of a hygiene to maintain certain, I think, buzz around the brand and have certain volume of business. But 60-65% of our overall marketing goes into brand marketing, right? And small part of it would be influencer marketing.
Towards the later part of every episode, I ask my guests a set of questions, have nothing to do with what we spoke about so far. It's just generally trying to get to know you as a person a little bit more. So beyond work, what do you spend a lot of time doing that keeps your attention, keeps your fancy? So what are your areas of interest, as I like to call them, outside of work?
Yeah. Well, I think for last few years, I've started spending a lot of time with my family, with my kids, because now I think they are growing up. One is 13 and the other one is 6. And I've realized that I think once they cross 8-9 years, then it's very difficult to get hold of them. Right. So I think for last 3-4 years, because I missed that opportunity with my elder daughter. So I'm making sure that with the younger one, I don't miss these golden 7-8 years of her life. So whenever I get time, I think I prefer spending with her. Right. But apart from that, yes, I love listening to music. I love watching Netflix, reading books, traveling.
Anything you've read or watched recently that you'd recommend?
Okay, I've been reading this Netflix book, right, which talks a lot about culture, right? And
no rules,
I think,
is what.
No rules, no rules. And I think it's very different than some of the other books I've read. And this lot of learning for us as an entrepreneur as well, right? Because generally, I think as an entrepreneur, you have certain attitude, you have certain ego as well, right? And very difficult to take negative feedback, right? And I think that's something that I've learned a lot from this book.
What can you put together in an instant?
Put together in an
instant, like if you have like a minute, what could you put together in a minute? It's a very open-ended question. I ask this to all my guests. I'm always surprised to see what people come up with.
Well, these days, top of the mind, I can solve a Wordle.
That seems to be everybody seems to be solving Wordles. I still haven't jumped onto it, though. I'm terrible with word games. I'm not even trying. I'm not even trying. My last question to you is that why do you think the need for men to have products for grooming will not die? Considering we didn't have too many options, since the show's called Advertising is Dead, why do you think men's need for grooming products will not die? Why will we not go back to saying, okay, I just need like 2 things and I don't need more than that?
No, I think, yes, I think men have been taking bath every day, right? I mean, they have been combing their hair, right? So it's not that we haven't been using the products. I mean, we have been using those 3-4 products. And honestly, I mean, that's what you need, right? I mean, you can try out different stuff, but you need 3, 4, 5 products, not more than that, right? And I think what we realize is that even if we target like 30 million men, right? I mean, which is our immediate target, and each one of them is using 4 products, right? So that's like 120 million. And considering that they'll buy these products every month, so obviously the number is huge and the TAM is huge, right? And we just need a kind of 5-10% of that TAM. So I think the market is huge and it will only continue to grow because men are also evolving. They are also demanding a lot more stuff, right? So just to give you an example, I mean, there were a lot of sheet masks for women, right? And if you have a beard, it's very difficult to kind of get it stuck on your face. Right? I mean, so we launched India's first beard-friendly face mask, right? So these come in 2 pieces, and you can just apply it here. You don't need it here, right? So, so I think those kind of innovations will continue to, and that I think all those insights we get from consumers, right? So it's just that we are a consumer-first brand. And we believe, I think, millennial men, as they are evolving, they're becoming a lot more demanding as well. So they want hyaluronic acids, they want, tea tree and mint face wash. And as long as they'll keep demanding, we'll keep on launching and offering them the right products.
Thank you so much for doing this, Hitesh. It's been fabulous to talk to you and just kind of get an insight into a category which I feel is really kind of just like getting started in terms of scaling up. And always happy to chat to understand certain sectors better. But more importantly, for sharing your learnings from across your journey as well. So thank you so much for coming on Advertising is Dead.
So thanks for having me here. Great fun today.
If you like this podcast and you want to listen to more podcasts like this, head over to the IVM Podcast website or app or wherever you get your podcast from and look at all the podcasts that IVM makes. There's some really fun stuff there.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by actor and producer and author Tushar Kapoor. They discuss his new book, Bachelor Dad and Life as a Single Parent. On the Filter Coffee podcast, Karthik asks Ajit Andhare about his journey from a practicing engineer to the COO of Viacom 18 Studios. On the Wire Talk, Siddharth is joined by social scientist Thomas Bloom Hansen. They discuss the escalating violence in India. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth contemplates whether Facebook's crash is a blip or a sign of things to come. And on Tere Mere Raste, Keshav takes us to Himachal's most sought-after tourist destination, Manali. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our others for that matter, please do tell a friend. Don't forget to rate us on any other platforms that you're listening to us, whether it's a rating, whether it's a review, it all helps. And do remember to check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels. They're available on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, I would like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and HDFC Life Insurance. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Do you wonder why China does the things that it does? Or want to know how we could improve online privacy? Or perhaps you're thinking about how we can kickstart India's economy. If you'd like to search for the answers to such questions, check out All Things Policy, a daily public policy podcast that covers everything from employment figures to aircraft carriers. Tune in from Monday to Friday for new episodes and fresh takes.